Hello, this is Matthew from TruckHealthy.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make healthy gumbo right in your semi-truck. Before we cover the ingredients, let's go ahead and line our work area, this case our bed, with saran wrap. For our ingredients, we're going to be using all-purpose flour, celery, cooked medium shrimp, bay leaves, minced garlic, beef bouillon cubes, stewed tomatoes, tomato sauce, some Cajun seasoning such as Tony's, Zatarain's, I'm using Slap Ya Mama, salt, Worcestershire sauce, Tabasco or your favorite hot sauce, canola oil. I'm using turkey sausage. This is the healthiest option in my opinion. 1 large onion, 1 large green bell pepper, 2 packages of frozen cut okra, and that's about it for the ingredients. As far as the materials we're using, of course we're using some plastic disposable gloves, a whisk, some measuring cups, disposable plates, a good sharp knife, and a cutting board. So let's go ahead and get started. And I always start by putting on some plastic disposable gloves. It'll keep my hands from smelling like onion. And we're gonna, after we mince this up, we're just gonna put them on a disposable plate here. So we'll start with the onion. And as always, you should have on standby here a 5-gallon bucket with the heavy-duty trash bag in it. This is where you can put all your trash and your scraps in. The best way that I found, this is more of a small dice. I guess you don't really want to mince it up. That's the good size right there. As I've said before, you're not entering a cooking competition here. You're just going to make some good healthy food in your truck. So I'll slice the onion up as thin as I can, about like so. Then I'll cut it in half, and from there you can get your small pieces just by cutting it against the grain there. That is the best way I've found to cut up an onion in your truck with an all-purpose knife and get a good cut on it. We've got our onion diced up. We'll go ahead and put that on our paper plate here. And if you spill a few pieces, that's just fine. That's the purpose of us lining our whole area with plastic wrap. So now let's go ahead and move on to our bell pepper. And before we start that, what we'll do is get a wet wipe. You should always keep wet wipes in your truck anyways. I'm not going to take this to a sink and wash it. I'm not going to do that. So just take a wet wipe here, wipe it down, take the sticker off, and it's going to get cooked anyways. That should kill any germs on it when it gets cooked. There we go. For the bell pepper, I find the best way just to cut the top right on off, and you can slice it from there. Take out the core, take out this white part here. Now, we're going to dice this up now as fine as we can. And I find usually by doing that, cut it into little strips like this, and then we'll come along and cut it to smaller pieces. So we've got that cut up. We'll just add that to our disposable plate with our onions on it. Put that right there all together. Now that we have our onions and bell pepper diced up, let's go ahead and make our roux. We'll go ahead and start and put this on the saute setting. Now, let's go ahead and add about 3/4 cup of this canola oil. You can use whatever kind of oil you want, but this is probably going to work the best. If you use coconut oil, the flavor is going to come out wrong. So we'll use about 3/4 of a cup of this. Let's go ahead and add about 1 cup of this all-purpose flour. Maybe just a hair more. There we go. And now our 3 beef bouillon cubes. Here we go. We'll take our whisk and we'll just start whisking this on together here. We're gonna slowly let this roux heat up. These beef bouillon cubes will eventually dissolve in here. Just give them a little time and they will dissolve. Okay? A good roux, we're gonna heat this up slowly and let it turn a dark brown. If it starts getting too hot, I'll turn off the Instapot, let it set for a minute and then turn it back on. I'm gonna end up cooking this slowly until a nice dark brown without burning it for probably about 30 minutes here. I want this roux to be really good. So while our roux is heating up here slowly, you want to make sure it doesn't burn. It's almost a constant stir to it. I left out an ingredient that we should have chopped up earlier, and that is about 1.5 cups of coarsely chopped celery. So I'm gonna go ahead and quickly do that now while I'm keeping an eye on this roux. Again, you really want to keep an eye on this roux. You don't want it to burn. It'll mess up the whole gumbo. And my beef bouillon cubes are starting to break up. Perfect. So, as I'm keeping an eye on that and whisking that, let's go ahead and cut this up here. Cooking in your truck's really fun. It is. It's very satisfying to have a good healthy meal that you cooked yourself. So this is about 1 cup, and I'm going to cut up just a little bit more. Here we go. Maybe this much more right here. There we go. Perfect. We're going to let this set, and when our roux gets a nice dark brown color, we will go ahead and add in those vegetables that we chopped. And as you can see, our roux is really starting to heat up and cook. We'll break up these bouillon cubes the rest of the way here. And this is what it's supposed to look like. Nice and thick. And you definitely don't want to let it burn, so just keep a steady whisk to it. We're about 10 minutes in, and as you can see, our roux is starting to brown up some. And that's what you want to do. Just let it set there, get nice and bubbly, and give it a little stir. So as you can see, our roux is starting to really darken up. It's getting a nice dark brown. And usually on the stove top, I'd probably let this go and get a little bit darker, but it is taking a little longer on this Instant Pot, but this is definitely good enough. So now, at this point, let's go ahead and add our vegetables we cooked up earlier, our onion, our bell pepper, our 1.5 cups of coarsely chopped celery, now we're just going to mix this on in and let that cook on down. And while this is cooking down, let's go ahead and cut up our sausage. Before we start even cutting up our sausage, let's go ahead and put on a pair of our disposable gloves. I have our trash can close by. Let's just cut these open. Put these right on here. And again, I'm using turkey sausage. It's a little more healthier. An easy open. Sometimes it's just easier to cut it open. Let's cut this on up. That looks good enough to me. We're just going to leave that right there, and I can see our vegetables here are starting to cook down. I forgot to add one ingredient. Let's go ahead and add a tablespoon or more of this minced garlic. So our vegetables here are really cooking down. It's starting to smell great. Like I said, I forgot to add our minced garlic. So what I'll do is I'm going to add about that's probably about tablespoon and a half. That adds a lot of flavor to it. That's one of the problems with stirring this up with a whisk. We can be about done with the whisk now. If you've got a metal spoon, or you can just grab your knife and stir it up like that, which is usually what I do anyways. So this is cooking down. We're going to continue to let that cook down for a few more minutes, and then we're going to add our sausage. Our vegetables with our roux have been cooking here for maybe about 5 to 7 minutes. They're starting to cook down. At this point, we can go ahead and add our sausage. Now we're going to let this cook for a good 15 to 20 minutes. Our roux, our sausage, our celery, onions, bell pepper, and garlic are all cooking nicely in here now. Just mind that it doesn't stick on the bottom and burn. Just keep a good stir to it. Next, what we're going to add, we need to fit about 10 cups of water in here, 10 to 12 cups of water. I don't know if it's going to fit, but that's just part of these cooking experiments. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to stop there. This recipe calls, like I said, about 10 to 12 cups. I'm going to stop at 9 cups of water because we still have some ingredients to add. Just stir that in and let that get heated. Let that roux dissolve in there and let that thicken up. At home, you would have already brought the water to a boil with the ingredients in it, but we're using one pot and we're cooking in our truck, and this is still gonna turn out just as good as if you made it at home. It's gonna be just as delicious. So just stir that in there. Let's go ahead and add our tomato sauce. Our stewed tomatoes. Our other 3 beef bouillon cubes. Our Cajun seasoning. I'm going to eyeball about a tablespoon of this. That looks good. Give that a stir. Let's also go ahead and add your Tabasco sauce, your hot sauce of choice. Let's eyeball about 2 teaspoons And also, let's add 3 to 5 bay leaves. Give that a stir. At this point, what I'm going to do to speed up this process, it's on saute. Let's turn that off. Let's put the lid on and just let that pressure cook. We're just going to put it on pressure cook, normal setting. Let's let that cook for about 5 good minutes in there and let it get hot, let it get mixed together. Then we'll take the lid off, give it a good stir, and add the rest of the ingredients. And while everything's cooking in the Instapot now, I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to clean up my work area. I'm going to put away all the ingredients that I've already used, and that way we can just keep everything nice and neat and clean. Cleaning up of the cutting board and the knife and the measuring cup is no problem, as long as you have your trash can in here. So I've got my 5-gallon bucket with my heavy-duty trash bag, and I've got my bottle of bleaching water solution. I'll just spray these down and give them a good wipe here. Clean these right off. And if you're afraid of that bleach residue, just pour a little clean water over that right to your trash can. And that's clean. And we'll go ahead and do the same with everything else. There we go. Now all of our utensils and everything we use, they're clean and they're sanitized, and the next time it's time to cook, I'll give them another quick wipe down and they'll be ready to go. Now I noticed the shrimp I got, they have the tail on. We don't want that, but you definitely want to get the cooked shrimp. Since we're all doing this in one pot, get the cooked shrimp. You can get these at Walmart. I got all these ingredients at Walmart. The only ingredient I could not find was gumbo file, and we can get by without it. So just to take the tails off these shrimp, I'm just going to grab a couple of disposable plates, and we'll just put our gloves on, and it won't be any problem to take the tails right off these shrimp. These shrimp, since they are cooked, they're going to go in very, very last. And still, I've got my plastic wrap down, nothing's getting on my bed. We'll just dump some of these on there, and it shouldn't be a problem. These tails, they're still half frozen, but just pinch the tail, yeah, they come right off. No problem at all. By the way, these frozen pre-cooked shrimp make for a great snack. If you've got a little freezer in your mini fridge, I recommend getting a little bag of them. They make an excellent high protein, low calorie snack. Get you some lemon juice on there and some cocktail sauce. They are delicious. So I'm just going to finish up removing the tails on these. And by the time I'm done, we'll open up the Instant Pot and our gumbo should be ready for the next level. So we now have our lid off. We let it cook for about 5 minutes with the lid on, just under regular level pressure cook. And we're just gonna give this a good stirring around with our whisk to make sure those bouillon cubes are mixed in well, and to make sure everything's mixed in well. I've got it on saute now, and we're going to continue to let this simmer for a good 15 to 20 minutes. This is not a quick gumbo recipe. There is no quick gumbo recipe. It just wouldn't be any good. Stirring occasionally, just making sure it doesn't stick. It's really starting to smell good though. This is getting up to a nice boil, maybe a little bit harder than what I like. So all I'm gonna do is just turn it off for a minute or two. And I'm just steadily stirring this from the bottom to make sure it doesn't stick. And this has been sauteing / boiling now for close to 10 minutes. We've got 4 more ingredients to add. Let's go ahead and add just a little bit of salt. If you need more later, you can add more. Our okra. Let's go ahead and add our okra. Like I said, I've never made this recipe in the Instant Pot. I've definitely made it at home a few times, but not in the Instant Pot. And it's going to be a close call on the ingredients. They're all going to just fit in this thing. This is going to work out perfect. So we've got our 2 packages of cut frozen okra. Let's add these. Now, Worcestershire sauce. Let's go ahead and eyeball 2 tablespoons. Let's stir that on in. Now that the boiling has stopped, I'll just push the saute button and let it heat back up. And this is really smelling good now. We're going to continue to let this cook. I'm going to let this cook and simmer for a good 20 minutes now, a low simmer. If it starts coming up to a boil, I'm going to turn it off and let it set for a couple minutes. So I'm going to let that do it for about 20 minutes. At that point, I'm going to give it a taste and see if it needs any kind of more seasoning. The last thing we're going to add is our shrimp. And that's going to be the very last thing we add. The shrimp are already cooked. And this is a big batch of it. I'm going to get a lot of portions of this, and this is going to keep me good and fed here for quite a while in my truck. This has been cooking now for a good 10 minutes. In between a simmer and a boil, when it gets up to like this, I'll just turn it off for about 1 minute. And I'm just stirring this from the bottom. I tasted it and it is really, really good. It just needs to cook a little bit longer. I can't think of any other spices or seasoning that it needs. But you should always let it cook for a while and let everything really come together before you start adding extra. So now, at this point, I'm going to add the water. Remember earlier, I only put 8 cups of water. This recipe calls for about 10 to 12 cups. So, I'm going to see if I can fit in another 2 cups. Alright. And I did not add that earlier because I was afraid that everything wouldn't have fit. And I'll put that saute back on. And we'll just stir that up. And our final and last ingredient is the shrimp. And everything is just going to fit in here perfect. And since the shrimp is already cooked, we're just going to put that in at the very end. I'm going to let this cook now for about 10 to even 15 more minutes. I've had this at a low to medium simmer for a good 30 minutes at this point. It's really coming together. It smells good, it tastes good. So now I'm gonna bring it up to a full boil. Just be careful it doesn't stick. Keep stirring the bottom. Now, we can go ahead and add our final ingredient. That is our cooked shrimp. We'll stir that in, and everything is just fitting in here. I'm telling you, this recipe really worked out perfect. What I'm gonna do now is let this come back to a full boil. Once it gets to a full boil, I'm going to completely turn it off, put the lid on, and let it set there basically overnight. You can go ahead and get some and eat it now, and it'll be good. But for the flavors to all come together and for it to thicken up some, I'm going to let it set. You should at least let it set for a couple of hours off with the lid on. After we've added our shrimp, I'm letting it come up to a full boil. And we're just going to stir it from the bottom, make sure it doesn't stick. Now this gumbo is done. I'm going to turn it off. I'll put the lid on and let it set for several hours. In my case, I'm probably going to let it set until morning time just to make sure it's cool enough so I can store it in my 1-quart freezer baggies. I'll make a bunch of servings of it, put them in here, and put them in my little freezer, as many as it can hold at least. And it looks like I'll be eating gumbo for the next few days because my freezer's not going to hold all of that, which that's fine. Now, a lot of people serve this over rice, and feel free to, but I'm going to eat it just like a soup. I'm just going to put it in a bowl and eat it like that. I may make some rice in a few days if I can hit a Walmart. But this is a great recipe. This is real deal gumbo, okay? This is real gumbo. And you made it in one pot right here in your semi-truck, and it's better than anything you're gonna get out there on the road. I promise you that. Thanks for watching. Please go to my website for the full recipe. It's not a big long article. It's just the recipe with the steps, okay? Thanks for watching. Be safe out there.